ROMEOs.
Romeo Day. Every day is Romeo Day.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe someday someone will write a jingle for us.
Just shoot me.
Anyway, great to see you guys. Also great to welcome back our viewers and listeners. Thanks for joining us.
Hey there.
We've had some really good feedback with recent episodes. Would appreciate more feedback, comments that you may have. And certainly likes would be welcome. And we're looking for more subscribers. So if you'd be so kind as to click the button and join us on a more regular basis, we would greatly appreciate that. Thank you.
Well said.
Well said.
Well, thank you. So guys,
What are we talking about?
well, we're going to talk about an event that is going to occur in several months' time in the United States of America, an important election, which is likely to have significant consequences not only for America, but for the rest of the world. And so I thought it'd be interesting for us to talk about the state of U.S. politics today. What do you guys think?
Great idea.
Why not?
How much time do we have?
As much as you would like,
Okay.
Aki. And since you're asking,
Let me jump right in.
we're going to put you on the clock and ask you to maybe give us a baseline,
Right.
talk about political system in the U.S., talk about the state of the U.S. as we currently sit here today, and then we'll get everybody else to opine and provide some comment.
Let's do that. Let's do that. So, the good old US of A, the leader of the free world. And I've always been a fan of the American Constitution. I've always been a fan of what the Americans built and what they've given the Western world and civilization in terms of a very strong republic, a very balanced republic, a masterpiece constitution. And in my lifetime, the United States has always been about being the intelligent nation, being the innovative nation, defending freedom. They were very successful in two world wars, and they, subsequently, the United States went on to build some of the most prosperous economic zones mankind has ever known. Whereas in the East, you had the backward Soviet system, which was an impoverished, essentially a prison zone. And the United States, really distinguished itself, with the quality of its diplomacy, its leadership, the quality of its politics in terms of even when, the dark times of Watergate, when the president's own party leaders went to him and said, this is unconscionable, you have to go. When the mantra was, you put country over party. That's the United States that most of us of our generation, were familiar with. And now, unfortunately, when we look at, where things are right now with their politics and the type of extremism from the right and the demagoguery of one Donald Trump and how the country's politics have been poisoned and division, rules. This is something that I did not see coming, and I'm saying that it's a shock. We expected these types of failures and these types of negative forces to come from other parts of the world, like Russia, and we're seeing that, of course, in the Ukraine, like the Middle East, like North Korea. But you never, ever would have expected that there would be significant instability and the potential upheaval of that great constitutional government in the United States.
So I just wanted to make a comment, and I'll throw it over to Nuran. You talked about extremism and then emphasized the right. I just want to remind you that the extreme ideologies are very apparent not only on the right, as they have been for some time, but on the left as well.
Exactly.
And I'll just leave it at that for now.
Right,
and throw it
right.
over to Nuran.
Just if I may, to your point, absolutely, I agree with your point. But I'm addressing now the most concerning force right now in the United States, I think, is coming from Trumpism and from that new very radicalized and extremist right wing that Trump represents. Right? We agree with that?
Yeah, but hang on a second. You're talking about, you're looking, first of all, you're looking in the past 20 years, 30 years, or you're looking at the history, and then you're looking at this moment in time. Why don't we address what got us here? I mean, there's a reason why we're here. This didn't happen just one morning. We all woke up and, radicalism is here and no one wants to compromise and all this stuff. This happened because of grievances that people had for many, many years that weren't being addressed by the governments that were in place at the time. And we see this globally as well with populism, as they call it, right? So immigration, rights, all sorts of things have led us to a government and a leadership that's fueled by the people who are wanting these types of policies to come out. This isn't done in a vacuum. There were votes, 75 million people voted for Donald Trump, around that number anyway. Those are 75 million votes. These are people that said, I want this person to lead me.
So you raised some interesting points, and I just want to throw out a couple of thoughts, and then we'll all weigh in. Really what we're talking about is a country divided, because regardless of what our personal ideologies are or our perspective or perception of the situation in the U.S., the fact of the matter is that if you believe, at least to some degree, some of the polls, if you look at the results of the most recent election, which is dating back almost 4 years now, the reality is we're looking at a country divided, almost split down the middle, 50-50, not far off.
Yep.
Right? That's one thing. The other thing is, let's not underestimate the role that the media, and I'm talking about traditional media, and social media have played. The involvement of foreign states, very active in trying to influence people's thinking. And these have all been factors in addition to the ones that you just mentioned, Nuran.
Yep. Agreed.
Yeah. So, well, Dominic.
Yeah, I don't totally share your perspective. I'm a big fan of the States, as you know. I think that country, yes, it's got a blip right now. But it's a blip. It's a blip. They're very resilient, and they always seem to find a way to do the right thing. So they do. They do. They did it with the last election.
I'll also remind you that they also had a civil war, which is the bloodiest war they've ever had in their history, and one of the bloodiest wars in world history.
So they settled their differences.
Exactly. So to me, the States, it's a blip right now, but a very small blip. Don't forget, it's 4 years, and there's a lot of checks and balances in the States. And that helps.
Do you not consider the possibility that this may be a new normal?
It could be. You're right. That's a good point. However, I think if some of those grievances like Nuran was talking about are, taken care of, then, the balance, or at least, will shift a bit.
Okay.
And there'll be more compromise potentially.
Yeah.
Okay, so let me give you an example where that I call into question. So if you look at the situation right now, one of the grievances was a lot of the old industrial economy and the people that relied on those jobs, in what we call now some of the Rust Belt regions, where there was a strong manufacturing base. And that basically eroded because of the changes in international economics and manufacturing globalization, moving to China and to Asia, and those people were left out. And those people, basically, a lot of those communities were absolutely decimated, and they could not relate to their leaders, their democratic leaders in Washington, to liberals. They really felt like they got a raw deal. Absolutely, that's one of the strong forces behind populism. But what we're seeing now, if we look at the economy right now, what's happening is we see a lot of those manufacturing jobs coming back to the States. We see manufacturing jobs and these former communities now again having opportunity, and their economy is starting to grow again, but we don't see any equivalent change in people's attitudes.
Yeah, but populism isn't the same as what it used to be. You're describing a populism of jobs leaving the country 20, 30, 40 years ago when we started the globalization journey.
Yeah.
Now populism is about immigration. It's about reproductive rights. It's about freedoms and teaching children about more than two sexes and stuff like that.
Okay.
So this has become the new battleground, as it were. It's not the old battleground.
But you had checks and balances. Again, that was the heart of the American Constitution.
We still do.
This is what's happening. People had, at least at the end of the day, regardless of what your position was, you believed in the checks and balances.
Besides the Supreme Court being tilted heavily to the right now.
The Justice Department being
Forget the Justice
politicized.
Department. No,
The
stop.
accusations.
The potential for the Justice Department to be
But
politicized.
the populism that I think that right now is rampant in the United States. These are the things that they are presenting. That the government has been politicized. The law enforcement has been politicized.
Aki, there's such a small percentage of the population of the United States that has a full grasp of everything that we just said. And that's the problem. Everyone works with snippets, sound bites, social media. I watch Fox News, you watch MSNBC. All of that stuff is playing into the dumbification, if you will, and keeping people uninformed is to everyone's best interest. Very few people understand and have the grasp of all of the things that you just said, and that's a problem. I think that's the problem that needs to be addressed from a population perspective.
No, okay, but you also agree though that's on the public side, but on the government side, they just
want to get elected.
It was never like this.
It's always been like
Ronald
this.
Reagan,
They're just doing things a different way.
Ronald Reagan.
Every politician wants to get reelected.
Ronald Reagan, the Republican, the arch Republican, had a respectful working relationship with the arch Democratic head of the Speaker of the House of Representatives.
You got to stop looking backwards.
But those were the systems,
Who cares?
and those are the attitudes though that worked, and you can't just throw them out.
It's done.
You can't let them decay.
It's done. You can't go backwards.
We're coming back to our original comment. Then this is why
I think
we have
what's
so many
fair to
concerns.
say is that some of the core values that were evident in the behavior of politicians in years past seem to have disappeared.
Those norms
and so
are
you
gone.
mentioned respect. Any notion of respect or mutual respect amongst members of different parties, I just don't see it anymore.
Gone.
Don't
Same
see
thing
it
in
anymore.
Canadian politics as well.
No,
It's
absolutely.
It's just politics in general has become more of a dirty fight. It used to be with respect. I'll talk to you with respect. I'll treat you with respect. No, now I'm going to make fun of you. I'm going to talk about your eyelashes being fake.
I agree. I agree with what I'm saying. But do you not see like a whole other level of falsehood and popular positions that are just absolutely just lies?
Again, it's about getting reelected. And there's a sausage grinder in place
Never did you have this level of gap.
Those who are saying those lies and whatever, you get more exposure than the average guy. So that's why we hear them.
Yeah, exactly.
And a lot of people don't think that way.
Well, I think to be fair, guys, there was a level of decorum in politics, in U.S. politics, that is no longer apparent.
Those
So-
days
I
are
totally
gone.
agree.
They're gone. And to your point, Pat, I don't think they're coming back. Because once people feel comfortable in doing what they're doing and it's accepted, it's now accepted. And no one has the party, by the way, party above politics or
Country above party.
Country above party is gone. Back in the day, if one of the politicians became a loudmouth and said terrible things to another one, his own caucus or his own team would come to him and say, "Hey, guy, you're out of line. Go, backdoor and apologize and do what you have to do." But there was that decorum. That's gone now.
Right.
And how is that ever going to come back? It's a socially accepted norm now.
It appears to be.
So we're stuck with this.
Certainly for the foreseeable future.
Yeah. So how do you deal with that now as a population? And by the way, you know what? I'll turn it because we're Canadians and all that stuff. I'll turn it into hockey. Everyone in hockey talks about how we should not have fights in hockey. It's a terrible thing. You stick a microphone under someone's mouth. Yeah, hockey's terrible. I just want to see the game. However, every single time there's a fight on the ice, 18,000 people in that ring are. I
don't think the anti-fight in hockey is that strong.
It is if you ask a lot of people. My point, and the point I'm trying to make, instead of trying to dig at what my analogy is, let's look at the point. People say one thing, but they mean something else, right? It's the same thing with politics. People are loving it. Donald Trump is extremely, extremely entertaining to watch. Why do you think people go to his rallies where he's talking about all sorts of crap off the top of his head? The guy's entertaining. He's an entertainer. So we're at this point where populism is being led by entertainers and people who know how to get people's attention. like Hitler did back in the day. He was very good at his speeches and getting people and grabbing people's attention. I'm not trying to equate people to Hitler. I'm just saying he was good at what he did.
And you saw the results.
Again, I'm not being judgmental, although I should be.
You should. Adolf Hitler and the Nazis.
Yeah. So guys, let's take a step back.
I use the bad
take a step back.
Fine.
Sorry.
I understand.
So my understanding of the U.S. political system leads me to understand that the structure that was put in place was intended to ensure that no single element of the system, and certainly no singular individual, could hijack the agenda and force issues through that would not benefit from a balanced view, consideration, healthy debate, and ultimately decisions made, either enacted into law, policies, and so on.
Yep.
That's gone.
Well,
That is gone. So now it seems that
the system is in place. It's just it's not being the implementation of the system is flawed at this point. Is more the way I would say it, because the laws are still, you still have co-equal branches.
I don't know.
It's been hijacked by one person.
Well, I don't think the system is any different. I think what has changed is that there's an individual who was very successful
at co-opting the other two branches
and implementing his philosophy in a way that no predecessor ever did.
Right. So you're basically on the road towards tyranny. I mean, the American system and experiment, it came from the experience of Europe. I mean, let's not forget, these were refugees from, who were fleeing
from
persecution. Exactly. Who were leaving absolutist, monarchies that were oppressive.
We have King Trump now.
And that we're backward. Exactly. So that's where this came from. So right, the very seed of the United States was that we know that we had to learn from this, and we had to build a system that was more rational, more reasonable, and more democratic.
It makes sense because he has a golden toilet, so
that's
his throne.
so you have somebody now, first of all, who's completely clueless, and most of his followers, they don't give a shit about the Constitution.
No, they do. They just don't understand.
But they don't understand it.
They don't understand how
history.
it's being bastardized.
But we have seen it's very dangerous when you have demagogues, evil, lying demagogues who fascinate people.
Yeah, but that's okay. That was my Hitler analogy.
But that's the situation.
And we're close to that, very close to that situation.
So, Aki, are you assuming that Trump is a shoo-in November?
As we speak, with the recent news, very close to being a shoo-in.
Yeah, I would hope that someone steps up on the other side and make it into an interesting race, because at this point, I was a supporter of Biden, but at this point, the guy's like, he's half dead.
Okay, so
as far as I'm concerned,
you might be kind by suggesting half,
maybe 3/4.
So guys, but we're talking about individuals, and clearly that's an important part of the story. But the president doesn't act alone.
No,
exactly.
And so there's a Congress comprised of Senate and a House of Representatives that play an important part in the day-to-day lives of Americans. And do we see a difference today in terms of the ideology of the individuals who are essentially the candidates for their respective parties for the presidency, and the broader representation? Do we have a sense of how things will turn out as far as representation in Congress is concerned? Because a president can demand loyalty, can demand that his agenda be put through, but his powers are limited at the end of the day.
So I'll respectfully disagree in one sense.
Mm-hmm.
Right now, if you've got the executive branch and the Supreme Court, then you can pretty much bypass Congress with a lot of executive orders that can be challenged, and then the Supreme Court can side with you, I would think.
That's part of it.
So right now, you've kind of gotten to a point where Congress doesn't seem to be as important as it used to be. Now, I may be wrong.
I don't agree. I don't think it's a question of importance. I think that what's fair to say is that Congress is more dysfunctional
Exactly.
than it has been.
And less important if you have the Supreme Court and the executive branch.
No, because Congress has the power
to enact laws. Right. But if they're powerless, to your point.
Not powerless.
Well, not powerless,
Inept.
inept.
Dysfunctional.
Inept
Right.
and dysfunctional.
But even the power to enact laws requires
They need executive signing.
assent.
Exactly.
So okay, but let's take a step back as well. What's happening in Congress is, look,
Sorry, but it can also serve to manage, if not control, some of the damage that would otherwise occur.
I think Congress holds the pocketbook.
Here's
or
where
the
I'm
money.
concerned.
I think that's the only thing.
Here's the concerns that I have with today's American Congress. Number one, extremism is on the rise among members of the House of Representatives, for the simple reason that the way they do their districts, it's all gerrymandering.
Well, the problem is also it's 2-year
so the districts, all the districts, the electoral districts, they're put together in a way to favor the extremists.
So gerrymandering.
Moderates don't stand a chance anymore, to win those seats in a lot of in large chunks of the state. So you have a lot more radicals in the House.
How about Aki changing a 2-year mandate to a 4-year mandate, so that as soon as you get in, you don't start trying to get back in again 2 years later.
The other issue, which has been one of the major knocks on the American system, is the amount of money in the political system.
Yeah, well, that's not about to change anytime soon.
Right.
But that's always been true.
Right. But you have but you had again. If I look at Republicans, like very respected Republicans like Ronald Reagan. The last time the United States passed like a reasonable, sensible immigration act, it was Ronald Reagan. And now we have the example of the two parties. One example where they actually came to an agreement on a bipartisan immigration plan, and the tyrant in waiting decided that it wasn't going to suit his political prospects, and therefore he couldn't allow this agreement to go through. Yeah. So the United States, the superpower that it is, with the agonizing problem that they have on the southern border, for political reasons, the government is not enacting the policies that most people on both sides agreed are necessary. Yeah. What does that tell you about the level of governance that this great superpower is in for?
Country over party should be the thing that people run.
Yeah, we talk about country over party or party over country. I don't think that it's a question of party anymore. It really comes down to individuals.
And what do you mean by that?
Do you even recognize the Republican Party today?
Well, not really. I mean, yeah. I would have identified myself as a Republican. With at least socially liberal, but more so Republican than liberal, is the way I would have kind of described myself 10, 15 years ago from a U.S. standpoint. Mm-hmm. Now it's gotten like a bit haywire on the right. Even for me, who again, I identify as. Nothing. No one's laughing on that one. I'm as a closet Republican.
I'm letting that one sink in.
I thought you were going to say psychopath again.
Right.
So you use the term Republican. I'll use the term conservative.
Yeah.
So at what point did conservative values give way to a degree of loyalty and towing the line that, at the end of the day, has to be driven by some self-serving consideration as opposed to what is in the best interest of the people I've been elected to serve?
Right. So I'll tell you where it started. For me, the turning point was Newt Gingrich. When Newt Gingrich became Speaker of the House, he brought to the House this take no prisoners, total us versus them. They are responsible for decay, the decline of the country, and you have to just, absolutely, we have to destroy them. Senior members, when he became Speaker of the House, senior Republicans, old school Republicans were summarily removed from their committee responsibilities and replaced by firebrands.
But you still had voices of reason. So I'll think on the conservative side, I'll mention someone like a John McCain.
Right.
I never viewed John McCain to be an intellectual
character,
but a person who had character, who had values, who embodied what you would hope to see in people who were elected to serve their country.
Absolutely.
Right? A man of compromise, who had no issue working with across the aisle, a man who reminded his colleagues of what their responsibilities were.
Right.
And I think of individuals who collaborated with him over his time as a senator and who have cast aside those values and no longer behave in a way that reflects how they behaved and how they contributed as elected members of Congress, in some cases over periods of decades.
Yep.
Yeah. Look, there was
And now it seems that their motivation is strictly to satisfy, in this case, Donald Trump.
And getting elected again.
Well, not just getting,
that's what it's all about.
Just not getting realected. No, I think there's more to it than just getting reelected.
yeah, it's about crushing the other side.
There's no whore like an old whore, right? I mean, this is politics. This is what it's always been about, is getting reelected. And they, like a Lindsey Graham, for God's sake, like a Rubio.
Ted Cruz.
Well, fuck. Anyway, yeah. I don't want to say that. Like, the words don't come out of my mouth. At that
I feel your pain.
Anyway, they're essentially lining up with Trump because they want to get reelected. There's no other reason. These people are not stupid. They're not. These are intelligent human beings who have passed legislation in the past, have talked across the aisle in the past, have compromised in the past, but they know now, because of the populism that's in the U.S., if they stand a chance in their primaries to even be the person to be on the ballot for their party, they'll get primaried out if Trump doesn't side with them. They've had to kiss his ass so that they can remain in power.
I think that's true for many of them. However, I think we're being short-sighted.
In what
because
sense?
I think many of them are playing chess. They're young enough and ambitious enough that they're not just looking at the next election.
Well,
They're looking at how they should position themselves. And that's why I'm saying it's not just a question of re-election. It's a question of what happens in 4 years' time, what happens in 8 years' time when
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell's gone. No, and you know what? To his credit,
He stood up for a while.
he was
For
the
a while.
master. He didn't stand up. He was the master puppeteer.
For a while.
Yeah.
For a while.
If you look at the composition of the Supreme Court today, it's largely Mitch
Yeah.
McConnell's doing.
Well, yeah, Merrick
Largely.
Garland got screwed
And,
up.
and we have
from,
greater
Obama's
we
day.
have greater visibility to the Supreme Court, but there are other courts across the U.S.
Yeah.
where his hand has essentially determined who would be appointed.
Yeah, but my point is, again, someone of his age
But I'm
who's,
talking
who's
about,
not going to get
I'm talking
reelected for
about
another
the cast
6 years.
of characters you mentioned previously,
Yeah.
all of whom are long enough and have aspirations mid to longer term, where they believe that the only way that they're going to have a chance at someday becoming president of the United States.
Yeah, it's to stay in power.
I just want to say that strategy, if that's the strategy, and maybe you're right, Pat, that it's about that in their calculation, it's about achieving
Trump
power.
has only 4 more years.
That's right, achieving power.
We don't know.
We
don't
this
know.
is history has shown us when politicians
there'll be civil war.
pre-Hitler Germany,
There'll be civil war.
the conservatives rallied behind their parliament. The respectable politicians rallied behind the Nazis for the same reason. It was about, the calculation was the same calculation. This is how we will obtain power, and we will be able to control and contain this silly man. Okay. We saw what happened. It's a very dangerous strategy.
Yeah, but this is the strategy that's being carried out right now.
Yeah.
As voters, like, let's say I was an American voter. I don't like Trump. I don't like his style. But I like some of his ideas. What do I do?
Well, can't tell you what you would do or what you should
No, but
do.
as a voter, like,
Well, but what we
general.
see is that most voters, and this is not only true in the U.S., it's true elsewhere. Most voters are focused on 1, 2, maximum 3 issues. That's all they care about.
exactly.
And whatever candidate, and regardless of how flawed that individual's
There you
character is, whatever candidate they believe is best positioned to represent their interests with that 1, 2, or 3 issues, that becomes their candidate.
Thank you, Pat.
Okay.
Exactly that.
But January the 6th.
For me, what's troubling is when I see individuals who have no moral fiber,
Exactly.
who don't possess core values such as mutual respect, integrity, and I understand in politics integrity is hard to find, but if you don't embody those core values, then I don't care how much your policies or ideas resonate with me. you're not getting my vote.
So Dominic, January the 6th, to that voter, January the 6th, doesn't matter? You don't weigh that in at all?
Look,
No, they don't. I'll tell you why.
They don't, yeah.
Because you can put a spin on things.
exactly.
Yeah, and plus they're
So and
forward
this is where I
looking,
come
not
back to
backward looking.
my earlier comment about the role of media.
If you're forward-looking, then you're forgetting history, then you're
Because
going to be paying a price.
did he technically ever say attacked the Capitol Hill? He didn't.
His whole operation is built on hatred.
Yeah, but he didn't say
He said absolutely. He talked about the certification of the vote that was about to take place and how Mike Pence, we're counting on Mike Pence to do the right thing. We're sure he's not going to let us down, folks.
Well, and look, Nuran referred to Trump as an entertainer earlier, and I think that's selling him short. I don't think of the man as an intellectual giant,
no.
But he's not a stupid guy.
but he's
at
not
all.
stupid.
Absolutely
In fact,
not.
he's quite clever.
Yeah,
I agree.
he is.
I agree.
And he applies the basics extremely well. He repeats the same simple messages
Exactly.
repeatedly, over and over and over again.
Yep.
Yeah, and he takes advantage.
People buy into it.
Yeah, propaganda.
He takes
and-
advantage of any situation that is served to him.
And he doesn't leave an obvious trail behind. I mean, intelligent people will see through the shenanigans.
Yeah,
But most people are not that intelligent. And so when you raise questions like the one you raised, they say, I can't find any video evidence of him having used that word. But what was his intent? Well, you don't know unless you can get inside his mind. Well, no, you have a pretty damn good idea.
I
of what
agree
the
with you,
intent
Pat,
was.
but he never said those words.
Yeah, and how many people who are living, paycheck to paycheck, who have, a couple of kids, they got to go take, someone to soccer practice here. They got to do a homework assignment there. They've got arguments with their neighbors, whatever. They're living their lives. How many people focus on politics, right? It's nice to be able to have the time and the forget mental capacity, but just time and ability to put that time
And
into
interest.
into looking into the politics. But what percentage of the population of 400 million, 300, whatever, 70, 80 million?
I don't know.
people,
I don't know.
whatever it is.
I think that's changed. I think
No.
I think it's changed. I think there's so much anger. Like the people that you're talking about on the streets now, there is so much anger. It's just been fired up.
Okay, it went
It's been fired up.
It went from 5% to 7%.
The border. We're going to be overrun. It's frantic about the border, frantic about these migrants and all these terrorists and criminals that are pouring into the country.
Sensationalism.
But
It's
that's what I think.
sensationalism.
I think people.
You're
people
misunderstanding
are
what I'm saying.
Glued to that.
No, you're misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm saying people who actually take the time, as Pat said, to figure out that things aren't, as they seem, who actually dig into it, not just watch,
Yeah.
the migrant crisis and so on. No, that's the population. That's the base
Right.
of the pyramid. How many people are actually using critical thinking to actually figure out for themselves, oh, this is bullshit. Oh, this one is not bullshit. Oh, his intent was this. Oh,
Very
whatever.
few.
Well, that's the problem.
Oh yeah.
And in relation to what? Because I come back to the 1, 2, or 3 issues that matter to them. So if I'm concerned solely with a woman's right to choose, then I know what path I'm going down.
Yeah.
If I'm concerned with my right
Guns.
to own a gun and carry it
Unconditionally.
then I know which side I'm voting for.
Exactly.
If I'm concerned about the economy, well, frankly, no one seems to have an answer to that issue.
Yeah.
If I'm concerned with immigration, nobody seems, and I'm basing myself on the evidence we have before us, nobody has dealt with this issue effectively.
If you're concerned about your portfolio,
So that's an interesting one because, again, neither one has demonstrated the ability to deal with some of the perception issues. Some of it is real, but a lot of it is perception. The world has gone through a very difficult time, economically speaking, coming out of COVID, coming out of the pandemic.
Hang on. We're
But
at
relatively speaking, the U.S. is in good shape.
highs. Yeah, we're
Oh,
at
yeah.
highs. Every Dow's at its high. S&P just hit at 5,500. I mean,
That doesn't matter to the millions and millions of Americans who are struggling, who can't afford to put gas in their car.
I know, but he
who
was
can't
asking
afford to
about-
buy groceries.
but he was asking about people who are interested in their portfolios and their 401ks.
Okay, but this is where this is.
Most people don't have a portfolio.
Yeah.
They're
True.
concerned with the here and now. They're
Right.
saying day-to-day living has become a struggle.
Yeah.
And which one of these candidates do I think is best positioned to help
That's
me?
part of it. That's part
And
of it.
my point is, neither one has demonstrated the ability to address that in a meaningful way. Again, giving credit where credit is due, America is in much better shape than virtually every other country in the world.
Correct.
It's true. Look at the strength of the U.S. dollar
Look
right
at
now,
look at
globally.
the GDP now of the United States. It's almost double the GDP of the European Union.
Yeah, it's crazy. You know, they just need. There's just one answer to all of this. One answer.
And the answer is,
Michelle Obama.
oh my gosh.
Oh, don't get me started. That's the other.
How some of these ideas come to life and how they get traction
Polling.
is remarkable.
It's polling.
Absolutely remarkable.
But that's no, seriously, regarding Michelle Obama, that's the other big failure, right? Now we have
what's the big
these
failure?
these popular icons, and Michelle Obamas that we love. We love what they write. in
Dwayne
their books.
Johnson.
The Bill Maher,
Oprah.
Bill Maher. They have all the answers, in their wonderful studio with the with the applause from their audience. They have the answers. They present intelligent arguments. But when duty calls, I mean, take it to the next level. If you're really serious and you really think you have these answers, and you really have these concerns about the future, and you are who you are and the type of following that you have, then in my opinion, you have a responsibility to take it into the ring.
One of them did. I forget his name, but the guy, the senator, he was a comedian.
Al Franken?
Al Franken,
Yes,
there you
he was a great senator, and well, that's another ridiculous story. This is
That's fine. Let's not get into that. But the point is, there is someone.
But the point was there's the example of what you're talking about.
The liberal
Right.
story is filled with ridiculousness.
Absolutely. Which is part of the problem. Which is part of the big problem. Why the nutbags, these cases of real extremists now have so much sway because of a lot of failures in the liberal
that's
side.
what I said earlier.
We agree.
Right? There's a pendulum that swung
Right.
too far left.
But Al Franken, I mean, to your point, there was somebody who most people will agree, principled person.
Yeah.
A good senator, did his work, respected in the Senate by all sides.
Yep.
And, right away, when he felt, that he had done something wrong and there was guilt, I have to, being reasonable and honorable, I have to step down.
I would say not right away.
Well, he didn't have to. The point is, we all agree he didn't have to step down. Considering, he didn't have to step down.
If he was a Republican, he wouldn't have.
If it was a Republican, he would be
Clearly
absolutely. He'd be putting out new posters.
No, he'd be a VP right now.
Yeah, or maybe an appointee to the Supreme Court.
Yeah.
Right.
So where do we go from here?
Yeah.
So I just want to say the following. What concerns me is that all of these these issues that we're discussing, has it been factored into the financial planning? The masterminds of our finances, our financial leaders in our investment world. Has anybody even asking the question? The American economy. What happens if the political system in the United States, implodes?
Well, you've gone a few steps out of left field here, as far as I'm concerned.
Okay.
I don't think the system is going to implode or explode or
you don't.
whatever.
Okay.
No, I don't. I
The
think
stock market has already factored that in.
yeah, exactly. Everything's factored into the stock market at any point in any given time.
Including
The efficient
things that
market
should not be.
hypothesis.
Including what?
Things that should not be factored in.
Well, the efficient market hypothesis.
And I don't think
apparently.
Yeah. Well,
We'll see.
2008 kind of,
Listen, let's. Okay, from my 2 cents, let's not go into the absurd or potential absurdity of the entire country falling into whatever ruin and so on. Let's just step back for 1 second and say, you know what? Something's going to happen. It's either going to be, liberal or conservative, Democrat or Republican, and based on that, there's going to be 4 years of whatever. I personally don't believe that if Trump wins, that he's going to be in power for the rest of his life. People talk and there's a lot of hyperbole about all of this stuff. Yes, personally, no, I don't think so. I just wish that 2 better people had risen out of the entire population of the U.S.
Yeah,
which I've heard.
wishing is not going to change anything.
Exactly.
So, but I want to come back on a point you made. It was inconceivable to many Americans that following a free and open election, there would not be an orderly transition of power.
exactly.
Right? Inconceivable. Yet it happened. I'm just going to ask a question. If Trump is elected, and there's a good likelihood he will be, what prevents Congress, assuming that he has Congress in his back pocket, what prevents them from enacting a new measure which does away with this idea that a president cannot serve more than 2 terms.
That would be a constitutional change, which requires, I think, some sort of supermajority or something.
I'm not
There's-
sure it's a constitutional.
It is, and by the way, the Congress gets reelected every 2 years. So usually in the second year of a
No, not all of Congress. So I'm sorry,
No.
Senate, the House of Representatives,
so the House of Representatives is every 2 years. The Senate is every 6
not
years.
all the House of Representatives.
It's
Not in it's 2 years, but they're not aligned. There's a cycle. So every 2 years, a number of representatives have to seek re-election.
Got you. Okay, but
Right?
but
They
they're
overlap.
all over 2 terms, though.
Over two, yes.
They only all have
And the
2
Senate
terms.
and the Senate
is 6
serves
years.
its in the
Are
entire.
you
You know
sure?
what?
But I'm not sure. I think what you're describing applies to the Senate, but I'm not sure it applies to the House of Representatives.
No, House of Representatives.
Regardless, even
That's
if-
why you
Okay.
have midterm elections.
That's right, and that's the Congress or the
Yeah, but that's a whole Congress.
no
and
House of
No,
Representatives.
House of Representatives.
Senate is 6 years.
So
Yeah. Okay.
my point is that's why I'm saying if the structure in Congress
Yes.
is right for someone who wants to see changes enacted, what would prevent someone like Trump collaborating with Congress to bring into law a new measure that allows a president to serve more than 2 terms?
look,
I think you'll have civil war
I don't know
Why?
about
because I think enough people will be losing their minds over the fact that they've now become a kingdom. They've become Russia.
so-
They've become North Korea.
I don't think that's going to happen. And regardless,
If it's law, what do you say? I don't think it's going to happen.
It's a possibility. I think the
I don't think
probability is
we
low.
can say
Yeah.
there's zero likelihood that this would
No,
happen.
but the probability is low. I'll say 5% probability, 8% probability.
I don't know how you
it's
assign a
non-zero.
probability to it.
It's
But,
my feeling.
Pat, regardless, the guy's an old man already.
Yeah.
He's going to be an old man in 4 years.
And?
An older man. You know, I mean, look, if Biden wins, I don't think he'll finish the 4 years.
Yeah, I don't think that scenario is
Listen, the CIA will
the
take
cards.
him out.
You want to assign probabilities. I don't think that. Well, you're assuming there will be a CIA.
Well,
Exactly.
there'll be some black
Handpicked-
ops.
handpicked by
There'll be
Trump.
some black ops shit that Trump doesn't know about that'll take him out.
Yeah. It's
Yeah, I
Well,
don't think so.
Yeah, I think so.
then you've really gone down a rabbit hole.
Or Putin.
There you go.
There
no,
you go.
actually, it'll be Putin's friend. He'll be Putin's friend.
I don't know about that.
So where have we gotten, guys? We went down
I'm,
down some dark alleys here
Yeah.
with respect to.
Well,
the
I don't
US
know how
politics.
dark they are. Again, I think there's an element of sensationalism. So regardless of which candidate is elected, I don't think the situation is going to get dramatically better for America and its allies and trading partners.
Yeah.
I think both of these candidates are busts. I think that Congress is broken. I think that the Supreme Court is broken. And these are generational issues.
Yeah.
Because as much as we talk about, an election in 4 years' time, so it's only 4 years, sorry, Supreme Court is not 4 years. It's a
life.
generation.
Yeah, that's it.
It's an entire generation.
And they have a super majority now. For,
And
for
for
a long
me,
time.
I don't want to overly simplify something that is extremely complex. But we talk about the extremes, both on the liberal and conservative side. I think that in order for a democracy to work effectively, it has to operate somewhere around center.
Exactly.
You can be slightly right of center, you can be slightly left of center. But the moment you move towards the extremes, it's not going to work because the division is too great. There's no longer any collaboration. There's no open-mindedness. There's no hope.
and that's where we are.
And that's where
That's
we
where
are.
we currently are. And
We
I
are.
don't think that gets fixed.
And it's a
with-
frontal. And it's a frontal attack on that principle.
The thing,
from both sides. From both sides.
Mostly,
And
mostly from the side responsible for January the 6th.
thing, Pat, is that the pendulum swung one side completely. So that's why people are on the other side to bring that
That's
pendulum.
just part of that as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. It doesn't-
I'm not following. What do you
Well, I
mean
think the
it's-
pendulum has gone way to
No,
the
there's
left.
some extremism on the left that just fired up with the extremism on the
Exactly.
right. So there's part of that
So
dynamic
so
too.
you've got to be on the right in order to bring that pendulum
But that's what
back.
leadership. That's why leadership was so
No, but
important.
I think you can make the same argument for both sides. I don't think it's a question the pendulum has swung too much to the left. Therefore, you're seeing, all this support to the right. You can argue that the pendulum swung so much to the right that you have more and more of the left-leaning extremists who are consuming the oxygen. The reality is that if we were to really look at it closely, the individuals who live at those extremes are in the minority of the population.
Yes.
Yes.
But they suck up all the air, all the oxygen.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's another problem with the media.
And that's why
who gives them the oxygen.
That's why I'm hopeful. And I'm not hopeful for this November. I'm not hopeful for 4 years' time, because I think some of the damage that will be done is going to be longer lasting. But if we look out 20 years,
Yeah, it might get fixed.
I'm hopeful that we will move back towards, or the Americans will move back towards center, because that's the only way you can operate an effective democracy.
There's a lot of damage that can happen in this generation.
Damage has occurred over
And
the
I'm
course
really
of
worried about the
generations.
foreign affairs. I'm really worried about Putin in Russia and the authoritarian powers in the world. I'm very worried
Why
about.
are you worried? You're retired. Take your
Yeah.
time off.
Yeah.
Go to a beach somewhere.
I think it's perfectly legit to be concerned about the situation. Perfectly. However,
I think we could. I think
it doesn't mean that we're facing the prospect of a nuclear warfare,
I'm not sure about that, Pat.
or that America is going to implode. I think there's an element of sensationalism that we have to be careful in how we interpret what the media is trying to do, and how they're trying to influence, and how foreign states are trying to influence the thinking of Americans and their allies.
And the States is blessed with the ultimate check and balance, capitalism. Because you know what? Nobody wants to lose money. Nobody wants to lose standard of living. So decisions
Hallelujah.
will
What
be
do you say?
made accordingly.
That's the smartest thing I heard all day.
well, Trump ran up.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I agree
but again-
100% with what you said.
Conservatives. Trump ran up record.
It doesn't matter. As
debt.
soon as people.
But those
who-
records were since broken by Biden.
Exactly.
Yeah, okay.
So my
He's
point on
so
capitalism is, let's be careful. Let's be
So
careful.
right.
Because I think capitalism is under threat, and perhaps that'll be a topic for another day, another podcast.
I agree.
The wealth amongst corporations and the wealth amongst individuals is more highly concentrated today than in any time in American history.
Yep.
Not just in the States. I mean, in
But
the
we're
West.
talking about this.
Right. But I mean, in general, that's a capitalist challenge in general.
I can't worry about everybody.
On that note,
Spoken like a true capitalist.
Exactly.
I'm very worried about our American neighbors.
they'll figure it out.
I'm not at all.
They'll figure it
Okay.
out. Yeah,
I feel better then. Okay.
some of the most brilliant people on the
This,
planet
this,
are
this,
there.
is, this is the conclusion of this brain trust. Okay.
I'm not worried at all.
I have to
Well,
take that
I'm
into
not sure.
account.
I'm not sure we all reach the same conclusion on this topic.
So, quick conclusion.
Go ahead.
I think they're going to be fine overall in the next 10, 12 years. The next 4 to 8 years is going to be very interesting to watch. And yeah, they'll be fine. I think they'll get their act together eventually.
USA.
I think they're in for a cataclysmic experience.
So that means you're selling all of your portfolio. You're selling it. You're going to go and live in Finland.
I'm just
near the.
I don't trust.
Arctic
I don't
Circle.
trust. I don't trust. I don't trust the so-called powers that be. The experts. The experts are notorious for missing some major trends in history.
Okay, so black swan event. Okay.
Yeah, so I'm not at that extreme, but I do believe there's cause for concern. I think that America is going to go through a much more challenging period, not just over the course of the next 4 years, but when you say 10, 12 years, I'm thinking more long term. I think it's going to be closer to 20 years of challenges just to undo some of the damage that will be done over the course, that has been done and will be done over the course of the next 4 years. And it's going to have significant implications for America's allies and trading partners, because as America goes, the rest of the world goes.
Right.
Yep.
And American viewers, we welcome you on the Romeo podcast.
We welcome everyone on the Romeo podcast. Thanks for joining us, guys. Thanks for the conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Look forward to
guys.
seeing everyone
Well,
next week.
Thank you, guys.
Take care, guys.
Bye.
Bye.